So, uh, here I am back with another weekly installment of the Weekly Sonneteer. And today we are looking at a poem by a poet named Claude McKay. Claude McKay was one of the central figures in the Harlem Renaissance, which the Harlem Renaissance was this kind of cultural and artistic movement from the that went on during the 1920s and 1930s, and it was basically creating a sense of identity for the African American community, because prior to the 1920s in the United States, some people might say that black people living in the States didn't really have an identity. You know, they didn't really have a cultural identity at that time. Like, they were kind of so downtrodden mentally, socially, that if you asked, what does it mean to be a black person, they might have had a hard time coming up with an answer. And so in the 1920s and 1930s, this movement started, and it was a renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance. It was a renaissance of black music, art, literature, and all of this coming together that gave black people this sense of artistic identity. This is what it means to be me, right? And so one of the leaders of this movement was Claude McKay. And we're going to look today at one of possibly his most famous poem, is his sonnet, If We Must Die. So the link there at the bottom under the video in the comments section, that you can open that up as usual and see the poem if you want to follow along. And as usual, I'll read it a couple of times. I'm going to go ahead and read that. If we must die, if we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men we'll face the murderous cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. A little background about this poem in particular before I read it a second time. So it was published in the year 1919, and it was inspired by something called the Red Summer, which was this summer when there were basically all these race riots across the country. White race riots against black communities, and so these riots, inspired McKay to write this poem, If We Must Die. And it's interesting, again, that it was 1919 it came out, because that's like right at the beginning, right at the genesis of the Harlem Renaissance, again, right? So conceivably, this racial oppression that was going on at the time across the country helped to spark this movement, the Harlem Renaissance. All right, so I'll read it again. If we must die. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men we'll face the murderous cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. So if we go back through this poem, and if we want to talk just stylistically for a minute here, you've got, a very traditional kind of a Shakespearean sonnet rhyme scheme there. You've got hogs, dogs, and spot lot. That's your first of your 3 quatrains, your 3 sections of 4 lines. The second quatrain, you've got die, defy, shed, dead. The third quatrain, you've got foe and blow, brave and grave. And then you've got your couplet there at the end, pack and back, right? And of course, this is also written in iambic pentameter, right? Which, remember, an iamb is like that 2-syllable da-da. And then pentameter is you've got 10 syllables in a row. So 5 sets of 2 syllables. So an iamb is da-da, and pentameter means you got 5 da-das together. And so if we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot. Of course, it sounds awful if you try actually reading it that way, but it's the beauty of meter again, right? Because the meter is there under the surface. You don't need to read it that way to feel like you're just flowing along with the line, right? It's built in, the meter is built into it. And so, yeah, that's one thing a couple of things stylistically about this poem. That second line, hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot. He really, just this repetition of sound, right? Hun, pin, in, an, in. That doesn't happen by accident. Claude McKay, is either intentionally thinking that out as he's writing that line, or he's worked so hard at this, in other poems that his brain is, writing this brilliant line here. But it's not like he just woke up and this was his first poem or something and he just happened to throw all those very strong in sounds in there. No, it's intentional. That's the beauty of craft, right? So hunted and pinned in an inglorious spot, that those 5 strong in sounds, it really makes the line a thing of beauty. The line, I'm looking down, line 9. So, O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe, right? And he's doing it again there. And so he really, I feel like he doesn't do it throughout the whole poem, or we kind of get tiresome. There's this balance. There's several lines in there where you really get that strong feeling of these repetitive sounds. But again, he doesn't overdo it. He knows you can't do that in every line of the poem. There's a technical term for that. I don't want to throw out too many of those at you here. Let's look at the content of the poem. So he's kind of over the top. He's creating this metaphor of, obviously, when you read it, it's like, if we must die, let it not be like hogs. Clearly he's not talking about a bunch of hogs and dogs here. Clearly he's talking about his kinsmen. Kinsmen means your relatives. It's a great old school word that makes it feel like you're stepping back to Shakespeare, except that he's writing, almost in the 1920s in America. And so it's got this feeling of grandeur, you know? He's setting it up like you've got the hogs and the dogs, you've got murderous, cowardly packs, you've got all this strong, militant language to describe the danger. And so you've got a simile. If we must die, let it not be like. Like is the simile, right? But he's like, we don't want to be like this simile. We don't want to be like a bunch of pigs that have just been herded into their pen or run down by hungry dogs to be killed, right? No, let us not be like that. Let us not be the pigs hemmed into a pen by all these dogs who stand there mocking at us, even as they're barking at us, right? At our accursed lot. And he puts that sid, you see that, I believe it's a hyphen there, to emphasize. It's not because he's trying to be French or something, he's trying to emphasize that, which is again for the sake of his pentameter, making their mock at our accursed lot. Because it's not accursed, it's accursed. And so these days, we like to downplay that kind of thing. We're like, you know what? Who cares about your iambic pentameter? Just let it go. Just be free, right? But Claude McKay, he's trying to do something here. He's trying to stick to this Shakespearean sonnet concept. And I get the idea if you want to just be free, sound as natural as possible. But again, we go back to that line in the William Wordsworth poem, nuns fret not at their convent's narrow walls, where Claude McKay is like, no, the whole point is I want to fit myself into this box, this structure, because I want to see if I can do it. There's something cool about saying I am going to place myself into a situation where there's some rules around what I'm doing to see what I can do within those rules, right? So it's an art form that's kind of underappreciated these days, but therefore, he's not going to say making their mock at our accursed lot. He sticks that hyphen there to remind us, how to read it, right? Our accursed lot, which fits the iambic pentameter. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die. Let's be noble about this, right? So that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. These people that are attacking Claude McKay's people, these white racists at the time, this is kind of the grandeur of it, where he's imagining these people as monsters. He's like, these aren't just random dudes out there for the sake of the fairy tale picture, the fantastical picture he's building for us, the dogs, the wolves. These are monsters, right? Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. And so he's like, even if they do kill us, they're going to have to say after we die, wow, those were brave enemies. Even if we're dead, they'll still have to honor us for the fight that we put up, right? It's kind of like if it's your last stand, you're like, well, I could just get on my knees and beg for my life while they're killing me, or I can stand and fight, and then at least maybe they'll honor me even if I end up dying. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave. We're outnumbered, but let's be brave. Let's be warrior poets, as they say in Braveheart. And for their 1,000 blows, we'll deal one death blow. They may punch us 1,000 times, but what if we get in that one powerful uppercut? Or whatever, right? For their 1,000 blows, deal one death blow. It's like, let's come back until we get the winning blow. What though before us lies the open grave? What if our grave is lying there right in front of us? It's open for us just to fall into it, right? That's a question. He says, so what? So what if the grave is open? So what if we die fighting today? Like men, we'll still face that murderous, cowardly pack of wolves or pack of dogs. Pressed to the wall. We may have our backs to the wall. We may be dying, but we're not going to die squealing like pigs. We're going to die fighting back. And so, an intense poem that gets some of its power from just this kind of Shakespearean feel to it, this epic language that he uses, but it's also very powerful in the moment, which is during his time with those race riots going on, and any of us, you may not be facing a moment like that right now, or you may have, or maybe somewhere in the future. But anytime when you feel like you really got your back up against the wall, and there may be an actual enemy, or the enemy may just be life, um, it's like Claude McKay's like, don't just lie down and refuse to fight. Stand up and face this thing that's coming at you. All right, that is the sonnet of the week. See you guys next week.